Welcome, everyone, to our presentation for the Applying Communication in a Complex World conference. Unfortunately, we cannot join you in Toronto this year. However, we are recording this podcast of our presentation. My name is Mary Helen Millam. I'm from the University of Hartford here in the United States. With me today is Dr. Diana Rios from the University of Connecticut, also in the United States. Unfortunately, our third colleague, Graciela Quinones Rodriguez, could not join us today, but we appreciate all the effort she has done on this project. So, now let's start our conversation about gendered size, race, class, and mental health. Reinventing Charlotte Vale from the 1942 film Now Voyager. So, Diana, I know when you first talked to me about this, you were saying that you were bringing this film into your class at University of Connecticut. But your class is about Latinas and the media. And Charlotte Vale, Betty Davis, is a white woman.
That's right. And so the question you're asking is how and why? There are many reasons. First of all, there was a film, a series, a TV series actually, that they viewed before, that they were in charge of for assignments before they watched Now Voyager. And that one had a particular character named Blanca, and the series is called Pose. She's a transgender person and going through many issues and seeking her identity and formulating her identity and developing her identity. And so for Now Voyager, I saw that there would be a great opportunity to bring in a landmark 1942 film, a classic era film that the students probably did not know about, and with a star that made an important impact in film for women and for the industry, that's as characters and also as a professional. And I wanted them to be able to, the students able to do a contrast between the characters, because Blanca is Latina and does not come from money, and she's disenfranchised, happens to be disenfranchised. But Charlotte Vale, who the character in this film, comes from big money, and but she is tremendously impacted by her environment and is struggling. And so, I don't want to say poor little rich girl, but I wanted the students to address the issues that were brought forth in Now Voyager, which were extremely new. They were novel for that era. For that era, the woman's film, and this is called the woman's film, and this is made film history. This film addressed mental health during an era when people did not talk about emotional stress and distress, when women did not talk about being independent, when women did not talk about their identity and searching for ways to be a woman or how they wanted to be a woman. They did not talk about verbal harassment and bullying. They didn't talk about those things. And so in today's era, or the era that is imposed, people are more talkative about their struggles with their friends, and more talkative about getting help, getting assistance. So I wanted to use this film as a tool to let students know these issues that women have faced have gone on for decades, for generations. So as they have gone on, let's say through this character in the last century, these issues are also relevant today. So today, we can talk more freely about mental health. We can talk more freely about bullying among peers in the family, verbal harassment. We can talk about the negotiation of our gender identity, of our sexual identity. And so those things are more open. I'm not going to say that there are, absolutely open, because there are still challenges, but I wanted to give the students an opportunity to bring that forward, and with the proposed 2025 release. I say, if in 2025 there was a new now Voyager, what would be in it? What things would be carried forward, or what things would be changed? And so they had, the different writing assignments, where they could do some comparison contrast with Blanca from Pose, and then from with Charlotte, but also some individual questions about Charlotte's journey, getting well, her journey getting over abuse, her journey about deciding what type of role she wanted in society in relationship to a man. Did she want a man?
Mhm.
Those types of questions.
Excellent, excellent. It sounds like it was a fascinating assignment and a wonderful opportunity for students to see how things have changed, yet also sadly stayed the same.
Mm-hmm.
So, and I know you pointed out certain key areas, and so why don't we start talking about those major themes that you and your students found? First off, this issue of size, gendered sizes is how we're terming it with the title of this presentation. So, we watched the film today, and Betty Davis does not strike me as someone who would be called fat or overweight. Yet her mother, picked on her, bullied her for her
Yeah.
appearance and her weight.
Yeah, and it's true when one sees that, you're thinking, why the character does not look like a large size in my view either, but the mother is picking on her, and with there's a lot of verbal abuse and put downs. I mean, horrible, horrible treatment from her mother, and so she's dealing with. And the students write about this. They name it, because I didn't name it. They say body shaming. They say body shaming, that they saw in the film, because they saw clips, but also they saw the film. They say they saw body shaming, and that was horrible. Of course, it's horrible. They say today, if in a re-release of the film, audiences would be triggered by a person doing body shaming to someone else, especially someone's mother who's hating on them. And suggested, they didn't seem to be sure. The students didn't seem to be sure if that would be included or not. But they knew, it indicated their statements indicated that they felt that body shaming should be addressed in some way, because I mean, they're at an age, the level of the class are juniors and seniors. They're at an age where they can be more, I think, critical, have more critical thinking skills regarding their themselves, their bodies, but also they have had to negotiate body shaming, but and definitions of what their body should, quote unquote, should look like. And they are at different, they're in that special age where they're still growing, even though they don't think they are, but they are. They're still developing physically, and they're working on that, on a day to day. So they are struggling with that, and so I'm glad that they saw it as very pertinent. They didn't necessarily have to pick up on different keywords I put in there. Some things they did not. But this one they did. They were really keyed into the horrible way in which Charlotte, the character in Now Voyager, was treated by her mother and by family members, and that's something that she had to get over with, work on, and get by, get through, struggle through, get over, get over the mountaintops. Something that she had to break out of.
Yep. So I am actually looking at one of your students' discussion posts here, where they talk about, a major point of contention between Charlotte and her mother are Charlotte's looks. Quote, her eyebrows are too bushy, she is fat, so to speak. She does not wear enough makeup. And the student rightly points out these are things that women to this day are still being criticized for. Um, So, and then also you mentioned other family members, and the student writes about the cousin teasing her
Yeah.
about Charlotte's supposed attraction to her doctor who's taking care of her mental health.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
So, yes, it's definitely one of those where we're still dealing with these. And then one of your other, did you see other i- places where students had good insights into this body shaming?
They well, they connected. I was glad to see that they were connecting body shaming or the expectations regarding what a body should look like to gender roles and 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 gender stereotypes. And that is, this particular student had said that there are. Well, I'll read part of it, and it says. Especially today's generation of gender differences, there are a lot of gender stereotypes in the movie, such as how Charlotte is only seen as a woman because she changes her appearance to be more feminine. So connecting that to body size and shaming, so Charlotte does change toward normative expectations in order not to get flack from people. And it could be the way Charlotte wanted to be, but we really don't know. Did she do that simply to appease society, or did she do it from herself, from inside? Was that really an inside decision? We'll never know that, and we can do a lot of analysis on that. But in order to be, as soon as she made the change, according to the films, she lost weight and changed her physical appearance. I mean, clothing, uh, wearing makeup as defined by norms in our society. Then she becomes acceptable, and then she's not shamed anymore. People or in her sphere like her more.
But she still is able to carve out her identity and still push back against the expected gender norms as far as her relationships, because
Yeah.
she's very clear with one of the men she's romantically involved
Yes.
with that she has no desire to marry.
Absolutely. I think that is, I think, a very key moment regarding Charlotte's personhood, and that is she does change to be look more sophisticated. She does wear makeup. She wears beautiful clothing, aesthetically beautiful. She appears to be more charming. She has her more charming in her manners and interactions, her interpersonal communication with others. But she was set up to marry someone a peer, a very wealthy peer, a gentleman, and she didn't love him, but the families put them together, and she was going along with it, and then she breaks it off. She breaks it off and says, and her mother asked her later, because her mother was very highly upset. She didn't care if her daughter loved or didn't love anybody. So Charlotte pushed back against norms by saying she did not want to marry that man. And then later on,
The friends with benefits that we were discussing earlier.
that is, and then I think the students were too polite to talk about that, to say that. The students, we have very polite students now. It's like, I know they're very cautious about what, they know that they have to be cautious about what they write. They do, in the film, we have her love, Jerry. She falls in love with a married man, and towards the end of the film, it's really clear she's made a decision, and they're taking the famous cigarette smoke together on it, and she tells him she doesn't think she'll ever get married. She's not interested in it, but she wants him to come and visit often. And so now at that time, there's different ways you can interpret that, of course, right? So from the view of the 1940s, you're thinking, well, he'll go maybe once a year to check on his daughter who's living in Charlotte's house, um, and because Charlotte needs somebody to look after and to love, and but today's era, I'm thinking, you know what? She just cemented a deal with friends with benefits.
She just wants a booty call every once
That's
in a
right.
while.
That's what she wants. I'm like, and she's gonna smoke on it.
Yep. And, another thing is that Charlotte is able to be this independent because she has social privilege,
Yes,
right? And so
absolutely.
that can bring us into our next part of this whole presentation, which deals with how race and class, right, privilege can affect, can impact maybe how much you are able to express your authentic self, how much help you can get, whether it's from family, friends, what sort of support network is afforded you based on where you are in our society, be it today or back then.
hmm I'm glad you brought that up. The students wrote about that as well, and that is that Charlotte comes from legacy wealth, uh, and uh, and she has resources. So when she has a hard time emotionally, she gets to go to and a student wrote this as a resort for to treat her breakdown. It's a beautiful, looks like a park. Doesn't look like a mental health institution in any kind. It's called Cascades, and she has resources, and nobody needs to know. Like in her among acquaintances, no one needs to know she had a mental breakdown. She just they probably assume that she's on vacation because she can. She has resources to go on vacation anywhere she wants. So she's able to have a psychiatrist, have support, have be at a resort location to get support and encouragement and to learn techniques for wellness and to get better about voicing what she wants for herself. But that takes resources. And in contrast, there's the character Blanca from Pose. There are no resources. Blanca and her friends, her associates, and her adopted children from ballroom culture, they don't have that type of resources. They must rely on each other. They must rely on friendships, and talk it out with each other and find out ways in which to cope. And so they have to be super creative about getting the type of support that they need. And it could be very practical support, making rent, or someone lending an ear, or finding out, or getting someone some kind of medical care. But they have to be super creative, Blanca and her peers, to live and to try to flourish because their lives are going against norms. Um, and there's a lot of let's say normative people that are hurting them, are pushing against them. Their own immediate biological families are kick them out, so they can't rely on their biological families, and they are just trying their best to find their way, and in their way be healthy in their way. And it's not it's extremely difficult. So you see very different circumstances. Somebody in the pose, of course, is contemporary, and deals with a community group which is very unique. And then you have this upper class elite white woman from the 1940s. But we can, I think, consider race and class. So the people depicted in Pose, Blanca and many of her peers, they're people of color. And of course, there are people of color that have wicked wealth, tons of it. But in this situation, we have been able to look at the construction of what it means to be feminine. What does it mean to be a woman? And so that contrast together with then what type of mental health resources do you need in your journey to your gender identity journey.
Exactly. And even today, someone with Charlotte's resources, who is, if not upper class, upper middle class, and can afford to basically throw money at the problem.
Yeah.
Whereas a woman of color who was struggling would struggle to find someone who would even listen to her and take her issues seriously.
Yes, absolutely.
And sorry.
Go ahead. Yes, the point about resources, because the characters in Pose have compounded challenges, so it is difficult for them even to support each other at different times. It's kind of like a jigsaw puzzle, because they cannot always support each other all the time, because each individually are going through many things. So it is very interesting to see that, but they are, try to do the best they can with assisting each other, because they know that's their family that they've created, and because they need the support. Whereas, as you say, the a situation like the character Charlotte Vale, you know, her cousin can throw. Is it a cousin? Yes, can throw money at the problem. Her mother can throw money at the problem. She can throw money at the problem and get assistance that way.
Exactly. And, this is a good segue into talking about, again, the mental health issues seen in both the current contemporary, rather, television show of Pose and this film from 1942, right? The last century.
Yep. Yep.
Back then, right? Last century, we as a society, right? The mores of our society were that mental health was not discussed.
Oh, absolutely not.
And yes, if you had the resources, you went to someplace that was like a resort or a spa. Maybe you were taking the waters.
Yeah.
But if you didn't have those resources, then you were in quite literally an asylum.
Yeah.
Where
Or worse.
or much worse. So, that is definitely, I think, as far as society has come, within the last 10 years alone, we have become more open to talking about it. And so your students are of that Gen Z era, that Gen Z generation, rather, who are more open, more willing to talk about their mental health,
Yep.
more willing to advocate for their mental health. And reading through their responses, they gave some really thoughtful responses on the state of Charlotte's mental health, how it compares with Blanca. So I think I had page 16 of where you printed out all of the student responses. And the one student is talking about the toxic relationship, the toxic environment that Charlotte was experiencing living with her mother in the house, having to act
Yes.
as sort of a caregiver for her mother who is constantly putting her down. And back then, we would not have used that term of toxic.
I know it. I know it. Yeah, today we have more words to express our environment. So that, yeah, the students were using the word toxic. They were using the word bullying. They used a lot of other terms that are of the contemporary era. So with one student, like on page 16 that you're referring to, they write, we see both characters, meaning Blanca and Charlotte, both characters suffering from mental, emotional, verbal, and even physical abuse. Blanca and Charlotte grew up in a toxic environment and a society where mental health was taken lightly. So he's talking about Blanca's suffering, but the student also knows that it goes on that that the way they both suffered, but of course the resources are different.
But the student also goes on later on in their post to mention the support that both Charlotte and Blanca got.
Yep.
Because they write about, I believe the people Charlotte and Blanca met played a huge role in the rest of their development,
Mm-hmm.
which allowed the two characters to express who they always wanted to
Oh, yeah.
represent
Mm-hmm.
without having the worries about being judged.
Yep. I think that was an important observation or analysis of the student, and that they were, and thinking about the environment of each character, so that Blanca carved out a piece of something that could work for her. It wasn't perfect, and things did not always go well at all. And she had some serious ups and downs. But their the environment and how they were able to manipulate that could work for their benefit.
That, and this is just, it's making me, our discussion today is making me want to not only go back and revisit Now Voyager with a fresh eye, but also check out Pose because I haven't seen it.
Mm-hmm.
And so this is really, really intriguing me.
Mm-hmm.
And I want to thank you for not only joining me here today in the studio, but also for coming up with this fantastic idea and, sparking these great conversations, not just between the two of us, but with your students.
Well, it's been wonderful working with you as always. Looking forward to our continued projects. We have more on the way, as you know. So we're going to probably wind up back in this room doing some more work.
All right, so stay tuned for that, folks. Thank you again for watching.